This is the Capital Dispatch Podcast. Here is Henry Chisholm.
Welcome to the show. This week we are talking vaccines because despite them being extremely effective, somebody saw a video on Facebook a couple years ago and that video made some really good points. And now because of all that, all hell's broken loose. In Texas and New Mexico, they currently, and I can't stress this enough, sadly, are dealing with a measles outbreak. And listen, I'm not like some of these liberals that, want to go high when they go low. However, I'm gonna pump the brakes on that. This story is not one of those I told you so moments. This is just downright depressing, man, and heartbreaking. According to the Capital Dispatch newsroom, measles outbreaks have affected more than 300 people and tragically killed one unvaccinated child in Texas and one unvaccinated adult in New Mexico. Now, this preventable outbreak and those preventable deaths are due mainly to people not getting vaccinated and parents not getting their kids vaccinated, and conservatives pushing and passing policies that provide people with a loophole to get out of getting vaccinated and getting their kids vaxxed. So back to the Capital Dispatch newsroom, certain states allow for medical, non-medical, even personal exemptions to getting vaccinated. In Texas, students at public schools can be exempted from the standard vaccine schedule for a number of reasons, in addition to a medical determination that they can get from their doctor. Now in Connecticut, thankfully, we removed the non-medical exemptions for vaccines, and it's something that's led to extremely high vaccination rates among young people in the state. According to a piece in Scientific American, unfortunately, there's just 5 states that got rid of these vaccine loopholes. But honestly, there needs to be more that do it.
Absolutely, we have seen with the change in the policy of requiring vaccines to enter school and no longer having the religious exemption be an increase in vaccination rates. Having that school requirement helps keep everyone up to date and on schedule and making sure that children are getting the important vaccines that they need to keep themselves safe as well as their classmates and teachers.
That was from a press conference at the Legislative Office Building in Hartford with State Senator Saud Anwar, who's been outspoken on this for years. He's a Democrat, and also pediatricians joined him for that. They're continuing to urge folks to go and get vaccinated. And again, vaccination rates are high in Connecticut. And it's thanks to Democrats who introduced and led passage of the removal of these non-medical exemptions back in 2021. And according to the Connecticut Department of Health, the percentage of Connecticut kindergarten students who are receiving their required measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines in 2023 and 24 school year was 97.7%. That's a 0.4% increase from the previous year. Still, there's a need to keep reminding folks because the Health and Human Services Secretary is a proud anti-vaxxer and spreader of lies.
The doctor who gives this vaccine to a child is committing medical malpractice.
We should not be giving black people the same vaccine schedule that's given to whites.
I do believe that autism does come from vaccines.
And birds of a feather flock together. So he's working for the president who lied so much about vaccines, even before taking office in 2016, that he reportedly led many to doubt the efficacy of vaccines way before COVID-19 even hit. Political and religious conservatives were already more likely to be anti-vaxxers before COVID-19 in 2020. And according to Time magazine, before he became president in his first term in 2016, Trump frequently tweeted claims that childhood vaccines cause autism, a now debunked claim. And a recent experimental study shows when Trump voters were shown his numerous tweets, they became even more skeptical about vaccines than they were before. And flooding the system with these lies about vaccines was primarily done by like 12 people. According to an NPR article, they call them the disinformation dozen, and unsurprisingly, RFK was one of them. And although the lying has had an impact, Senator Anwar made a really good point during that press conference about the environment that we're in that would make it so saying diseases like measles, for example, are fake or nothing anybody should worry about would actually catch.
The vaccines have been able to be so successful in our society that they have somewhat become a victim of their own success, because for almost 2.5 or 3 generations, people have not seen the illnesses that have been preventable in our country. And that's one of the reasons that some people feel that these illnesses are not real. They're very real.
And the impact of highly effective vaccines and the opportunism of conservatives to then spread these anti-vax conspiracy theories has caused vaccine rates to go down nationally. Even after everything we dealt with COVID, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that coverage with nearly all vaccines was lower among children born in 2020 and 2021 than it was among those born in 2018 and 2019. And not only that, but the CDC actually predicted a measles outbreak in this report that I'm citing from a year ago. The report states that recent decreases in coverage with most of the recommended childhood vaccines could lead to a resurgence of vaccine-preventable diseases like measles. So that part really sucks, because those kids shouldn't be ill. And the 2 people that died should still be here, that kid and that adult. One of the pediatricians at that press conference used to work in a state that did allow for these non-medical exemptions.
When I was in residency training in another state where they allow for philosophical and religious exemptions for vaccines, I cared for a young boy who contracted tetanus. He became progressively rigid and paralyzed and ultimately needed a tracheostomy or artificial windpipe and a ventilator or breathing machine in order to breathe after his diaphragm or breathing muscle became paralyzed. This would have been completely preventable with routine childhood immunizations such as DTaP, and I will never forget the anguish on the parents' faces when the diagnosis of tetanus was confirmed and they realized that this would have been completely preventable.
And that's what makes this whole thing, like, not just sad, but infuriating, is how partisan that it's all become. Even in Connecticut, when non-medical exemption bans passed here, it took 16 hours to get that bill out of the House of Representatives. It passed in the Senate, but a Republican state senator called the policy un-American. And according to a Pew Research Center study on vaccines and Americans' opinions of them, despite most Americans believing in them, believing that they work, the divide comes into play when people are then made to believe that their freedom is somehow being compromised by institutions that require vaccinations. And Republicans are much more likely to feel this way. And again, I'm not here to mock anyone who believes for any reason they shouldn't have to get a vaccine if they don't want to get vaccinated, if they don't believe in it, they don't trust it. But to those folks, just let me present you with a scenario, right? And this is whether you have kids or whether you don't have kids. You gotta have someone that you care about. You gotta have someone that you love. What if every driver on the road decided, it's my personal choice to follow traffic laws. It's my car, because I bought it, I put the gas in it, and I pay taxes that pave these roads. And they blow through a red light and speed right into someone that you care about and they kill them. Whose freedom was compromised at that moment? Does it even matter? Sure, the motorists got to exercise their freedom to drive the way they wanted to and get to where they wanted to get on time. But what about the person that you cared about, that you're never gonna speak to again, never gonna laugh with again, share a drink with again, see again? See, freedom isn't individualistic. Freedom is a compromise that we do what's best, not just for ourselves, but for the people that are around us as well. And I can't be free if you're not free, and vice versa. So vaccinating your kids gives them the chance to live freely without having to worry about catching something that we basically got rid of, like measles, or potentially giving it to somebody who might actually be allergic to the vaccine and they can't get vaccinated. So it's good to see that we're doing well here in Connecticut. And I honestly hope it continues. And I don't really know the reach of this podcast because it's new and we just started doing it. Or what I'm saying is either gonna cut above the noise on social media because everybody's got a podcast and everybody's got an opinion. But if you see this and you're watching this and you don't believe in vaccines, or you got kids and you don't believe in vaccines, go and get vaccinated.
This is a Capital Dispatch special report.
State lawmakers in Hartford announced a newly formed artificial intelligence caucus. They say it is the first caucus in the state legislature's history solely focused on tech.
We're putting the people of Connecticut first and over the profits of a few large businesses.
State Senator James Maroney, a Democrat, is a leading voice on AI nationally. He says the caucus will focus on building a solid foundation of regulations for AI usage to ensure the technology best serves the state.
We don't believe that guardrails and innovation are at odds. In fact, we believe that good guardrails, good regulations help to promote innovation, and that we can make Connecticut a leader in responsible AI innovation.
Matthew Wallace, the CEO of a tech company that builds workforce development tools and uses AI, says the moves made by the legislature concerning AI are warranted.
AI is here.
He says if regulated properly, AI is nothing to fear.
AI is not Terminator 2 robots that are going to bust down the door tomorrow and haul off your son because he missed school.
Lawmakers say AI should not scare people, but it is important to make sure it's not used to discriminate against already marginalized communities.
And that we must carry the same legal obligation that we expect of every institution in this country. That we treat people fairly, that we protect their rights, and that we do not discriminate.
Bolstering the caucus is a Senate Democratic Caucus priority bill, Senate Bill 2, which aims to provide regulations around AI usage and guidance around best practices for usage to bolster workforce development.
It will be on the states to lead here.
Henry Chisholm, Capital Dispatch News.
Content used on the pod comes courtesy of the Washington Post and CBS News.